All right, here we've got the picture of the framing square. Make sure you know the parts of the framing square. We have a tongue and a blade in the body. Make sure you know which is which. It's important when you're being given instructions, when you're told to hold the tongue on 8 inches and the body on 12 or 17, then you're holding it on those numbers accordingly. Okay, so typically you're always holding them on the same side of the lumber if you're holding them for angles. Now, framing square, is it really square? You can go to the store, buy a square, and assume, you know what they say about assume that it's square. Always check it, and even the one that's been checked in the past, check it again. Framing squares take a lot of abuse in the back of the truck, job site, falling off the roof, falling off the sawhorses, using it for an ice scraper, whatever you might be doing with your square. Always give it a check when your squareness is important. All right, so how do you check it? There are many different ways to check it. Some guys like to measure, do Pythagorean theorem, measure from one corner to the next. Corners get dented. It makes it a little bit difficult to be accurate that way. But if you have a perfect straight edge, a sheet of plywood works great for this. But if you were to hook your framing square on the edge of a piece of plywood, there we go, that is a beautiful square. Uh, put your framing square on a piece of plywood and then draw a pencil line on, obviously, the edge of your framing square. I'm sure you can get the picture. All right, once you've done that, flip the framing square over like so. Flip the framing square over, then it should line up with that line perfectly. If it doesn't line up, then your framing square is out of square. So if your framing square is out of square, what do? Take it back, throw it in the garbage, go buy a new one. You can buy a brand new one and that won't be square. They're mass produced, they're stamped, chopped out of a block or a sheet of aluminum or stainless steel or whatever type of material you have. So there is some flaws to them. So what you need is to get yourself a center punch, and you can use a center punch to square up your square. So for example, depending on which way you need to square it up, you would take that center punch right here in the heel. So to open this up wider to square it, if that was the case, then you would take that center punch and you would take it and hit it real hard, depending on whether you're stainless steel, a steel square, stainless steel, or aluminum. A series of uh, dents along that way that will expand the metal and then move your framing square it up. And obviously, it would be the opposite if you wanted to close it in. You would take that center punch and drive it on the outside edge. That would close the framing square inward, and then you would be square.